أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومثل الذين كفروا كمثل الذي ينعق بما لا يسمع إلا دعاء ونداء صم بكم عمي فهم لا يعقلون. Dear friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I recited Surah Baqarah Ayat number 171. In this ayat, Allah tells us about the kuffar, the disbelievers, and because those people, they are not to listen what is told to them about Islam. When they are invited towards Islam, so they make their ears away from that. Even if they listen something, the sound of that comes like a hue and cry, and that is not appealing to their heart, and they are not to accept completely. So they take, like, they listen one through one side and take it away from other side. So these type of things happen because even the animals, they, when a shepherd is calling the animals, they are just to listen, but they listen only the sound of the shepherd, but they are not to understand that one. So is the situation of the kuffar or disbelievers are like that. They can uh, they can also listen only the sound, or the screaming of the shepherd, or you can say they only understand the calling, or the screaming, but they can't understand the what the person is saying. So this is the condition of those one. This way Allah gave us the example of those one. For this way, those people who are kuffar, when they are not listening the reality, the Islam, and that the truth of the world, and what happened to them when the through listening they are not understanding, so automatically then, because in their heart, in their mind, so there is no Islamic understanding, so automatically what will happen when they talk, in their talking there is no truth about Islam. So they, this way they are dumb, and when they are just to go for buy the things, even halal, haram, or something, they become blind. They can take anything which is halal, haram, no difference at all. Even when they are just to say about the right and wrong, they can't understand the difference of that one. They become blind like that because they are not to use the mind, because their mind is not refreshed, or there is no store of some Islamic things, because they are not listening completely. They listen and they are not to keep it in their mind, so they are just to listen and go away from other side. So this situation is told in this ayat. Allah tells us, we read now, wa masalul lazina, wa and masal mean the example. Wa masalul lazina, and example of those people, allazina, those people, kafaru, who are disbelievers. Wa masalul lazina kafaru, and example of the disbelievers is like kamasalil lazi, is like the example of that person, allazi, who yan eku, who shouts, bima la yasmau, bima, at what la yasmau, does not hear, illa dua, illa mean but, dua mean the calls, wa nida, nida mean the screaming, and calling and screaming only. So they only listen the calling and screaming, but no understanding. So this is like, because John Eku is the word that is mostly used for the shepherd who is just to calling the herd of the animals. So the animals they only listen the shouting or screaming or calling of the shepherd, but they can't understand it. So Allah tells us here, because those kuffar they are just like that one, because those animals, like, because these kuffar they can also listen the sound, like shouting or screaming or like this, but they are not understanding what the person, what the preacher, or what the nice person who was telling them the guidance of Islam. They are not to listen it completely. They take it from one ear, like, and then they leave it from the other ear. So if one side they taken, other side they are to leave it. They are not to keep in mind. They know, understand. This is the situation what Allah tells us here. It means in their body, in their mind, the haqq is not to stay. The Islam is the Islamic things are not to stay in them. This is the situation in them. This way, uh, what happened then when they are just to listen the Islamic things, nice things, and they when that comes in their mind, and they are just to take it out. They are not to keep it inside. So this way they become summum. Summum mean deaf. So they become deaf, because when there is no any haqq, any Islamic light or Islamic understanding in their mind, so automatically what will happen, on their tongue haqq will not come, because that is not in their body. So this way in their mind, there is no haqq, no truth about Islam. So this way haqq will not come on their tongue. Bukmun, they will become dumb. And then, so this way when there is the halal and haram, or when there is the things which are good or bad, or evils or good things, good deeds or bad deeds, so they will be unable to understand completely, because there is no true light of Islam in them. So this way that time they will become blind. Umjun mean blind. Fahum la yaqilun, and this way, because they have nothing completely in Islam, so they become unable to understand, because they are not using their mind, not they're using their akal. So this is because in their akal there is no any capability of the light of Islam. So this way they are unable to say, unable to do anything which is really according to Islam, because they have not listened it, and they have not kept it in their mind, so they were unable to say it. So they are dumb, and then they have not to apply that one, because that is not in their mind. So this way they have no difference of halal and haram. They become blind, and fahum la yaqilun, and they are unable to understand, because they are completely, they feel no relationship with Islam. They are not to receive that. So the perception is not in them. So this way, so they are the people of kuffar. So Allah tells us so that these type of things should not come in us. So because if we are Muslim, we have to look. For example, when we are sitting in our drawing room, we are listening the TV, we are listening the radio, or we are watching the TV. So we are watching movies and some other things on the TV, and are listening some type of songs on the radio. And when Islamic things some comes, and or the reciting of Holy Quran comes, or something like Muslims guidance, some program comes on TV or on the radio, what we do, we make it off. But when there is music and some movie and some other, then TV is on and radio is on. But when there is Islamic talking or Islamic things, and then radio is off and TV is off. So this is the situation. This makes us deaf, because If this is because Allah said in this ayat, this is the tradition of the kuffar, because the kuffar people, as Allah said, kamasalillazi, is that one jan ikubima la yasmau illa dua wa nida. So they also, when the Islamic things, they are just to tell them like from here, then they can understand only calling and screaming and something like this, but they are not to understand. But here is the situation, what we do, we have to make it off. Even you have seen TV or radio, when it is on some Islamic program or something comes, then we have to leave it. Even when someone is, if we are sitting with someone, if someone is telling us or advising us, giving the examples of Islam and telling us that we have to make our character according to Islam, very good character, nice, peaceful person for everyone, and make in the habits, bring some good things in the habit. So then the person, if is guiding us and citing some special good deeds of our forefathers or our good saints in Islam, and then we are not to listen that, we are just to leave, skip those people. And we are, when there is something about the attraction through shaitan or nafs, we are just to go forward. Because when there is like a movie type things, or theater or drama or some other things similar to that, and or fiction or novel and some other things, we are just to go forward about that. If you can see, if you give a book to someone, that is novel about the sexual things, about the the and then the people, they are just to take it. But when you are just to give the Islamic book for guidance, they are not to take it. That is happening even when they are sitting in the bus or in the train or anywhere. They are not to open any book which is about the Islam. They are just to open that book which is fiction. Fiction is based on lying, and that is also about sexual things mostly. They are just too busy to learn that one and to understand that one. So how is the Islamic point? This is the point which makes the person, if the Muslim, makes him or her deaf, because no listening Islam, no understanding that one. So this way person becomes deaf. So these are the traditions that comes from the kuffar. This way Allah is telling us we must be careful, even when we are not to listen. And if someone is advising us about Islam, we listen from one side and leaving from the other side. If we are doing this thing, then this thing is already done by the kuffar, because this is the fully tradition of the kuffar. If we are following that one, there is no difference between the kuffar and us, and then we become like a deaf. And if the person who becomes deaf, then because inside the mind there is no Islamic concept completely, automatically the person is unable to say the truth in the light of Islam. So automatically the person will become then dumb. So similarly, when there is no anything about the Islam in the mind, because person is no learning, no understanding, but understanding only the attraction of the kuffar and custom traditions of the kuffar, following that one only, and leaving Islam completely, what will happen at the end? So the person will have nothing in the mind about Islam, on which the person can have a difference of halal and haram, good and bad things, so good and bad deeds. So then at the time of looking the things or deeds which are good or bad, or halal and haram, so person will be unable to decide, so then is blind. So this is umjun. So for whom la yaqilun, so the in the mind there is nothing store of Islam, so automatically Islamic things are not stored in the mind. So mind is stored with the things which are custom traditions of the kuffar and the other society members, and automatically the person will not be in a position to use akal, use mind, to answer any question in the light of Islam. So this will be a problem. Even if you this is the time, even if you say someone who is a Muslim, okay, if you say, oh, you are a Muslim, who is a Muslim, who is Muslim, just tell us or define Muslim, definition of Muslim. So you can see the Muslim people, they are unable to tell who is a Muslim. So this is the big problem. They say Muslim is that person who is just to read La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That is a good thing, but that is Shahada, that is the one part of Islam. Muslim is actually a Muslim is who submit to Allah under the guidance of Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, reciting La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and then you can see then pray salah regularly 5 times a day and pay zakat if the person have capability to pay, and then Psalm of Ramadan, and then the Hajj if the person has money or capability to go there. So these are the Islamic things, and also with respect to that there are the Iman also. Amantu billahi kama huwa bi asma'ihi wa sifatihi wa qabiltu jami'a ahkamihi iqrarum bil lisani wa tasdiqum bil qalb. Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadri khairihi wa sharrihi min Allah ta'ala wal ba'si ba'da al maut. So the Islam Muslim is the person is who submit completely towards Allah, he who submits before Allah and under the guidance of Allah, which have been received by Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the form of Holy Quran and Sunnah, and reciting Ashhadu la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. So the main thing is that we have to say like Muslim, understand then this way. So I told you that this is the point, that if we become a good Muslim, Alhamdulillah, then we have to keep Islamic things in our mind. So like if you look back, we understand from the back the last two ayat we read, in that Allah told us that for the people, that Allah advised all the people that they have to uh, eat and drink halal and tayyib, and don't follow the footsteps of shaitan, because shaitan is trying to give the people haram things, or sometimes the shaitan say you are not to eat the halal because make the halal doubtful also, and these this way. And when you say like the people, you are just to follow the Islam completely, leaving the footsteps of shaitan, and then if the people, some people, what they say we are not to accept Islam completely because we are just to follow the custom traditions of our forefathers also, and then they are not to follow Islam, they are just to follow the forefathers custom and traditions and uh, ways and working and attitude and habits and everything. So they are not to change them according to Islam. So automatically those people, they are away from Islam, they can't understand Islam. And when Allah said about them, and they are worse than animals, because animals they can listen the calling and screaming also, but these people they are not to listen the wording of the preacher and the wording of the person who is guiding them about Islam, and they are not to keep in their heart, not keeping in mind, but they are just to bringing to one ear and leaving the other ear. So these people, they are just to getting the ways of the kuffar, because that is the way of kuffar. They can listen something about Islam and from one ear and they leave from the other. So this way that things which is Islamic will not come to their mind, and this way they are unable to say the truth, and which is according to Islam, and they are unable to differentiate about the halal and haram and good and bad, and this way they become blind, and even their mind is not to accept what is the reality, because Islam is not in their mind, so they are unable to say, their mind is not to decide about Islam to say something. So they are like fahum la yaqilun, so their akal is not working that time. So their working is like they work like animals, because even the animals are just to listen the shepherd. When the shepherd is calling them or screaming, they can understand their call on understand the calling and the screaming of the shepherd, and they can change their attitude, because they follow the sound of that one, but they can't understand completely that one. Allah said that these kuffar, they are worse than the animals, because even the animals, they can also listen the shepherd, but these people, they are not to listen completely what the person is guiding them, and they are just to leave it, and leave the sound of that person, and that comes to them, and no understand what the person is saying, and they are not to keep that one in their mind. Even if they listen from one side and leave from other side, and they are not to keep in mind. So this way they are unable to understand completely. They become like a deaf. Then their tongue is not to say properly. They become like a dumb, and they can't see the good and bad deeds or halal and haram. So they become like a blind, because they are not using their mind. So that is because mind is empty, because there is no Islamic light, nothing they got. So if they get something, they left, but they are not keeping. If you keep in your mind, that is the thing which will help, which will be helpful. So this is the very important point. Even if the Muslim person who is from a family, and if the family people, they are not to know Islam except La ilaha illa Muhammad Rasulullah, so it is the duty of that person that must learn Islam, learn Quran, learn understand Islam completely, and even learn so much which is needed in the life, what in which the life the person is spending. So must learn according to that. Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that the kuffar, when they are just to call the statues or call the idols, so because idols, they are unable to understand their sound, they can't help them also. They are not to help them, and when they call them, so they are helpful, even they are not to understand. So similar situation is in them when they are just they are just to be told by the preachers, and they are not to listen completely, not to understand. Similar, when these kuffar, they are before the idols, and they call, and their statues or their gods, they are not to listen that one. So they are not to understand what the person is calling, like what the kuffar people, they are calling, they have dua or request. So their gods, their statues, their idols, they are not listening. So this behavior comes in them also. And this type of behavior, if it comes in the Muslim society, automatically that is the footsteps of the shaitan and footsteps of the kuffar. And if the people who are following that one, as a result, that family slowly will leave Islam, and Islam will finish, and those people at one day, they will they will be outside of Islam. This is possibility. So we must be careful. We have to look what is Islam. We must understand. We have to leave the things which are bad. Like you can see, this is like a shaitan. What is the shaitanic view? Shaitan, what the shaitan can do. So you can see, shaitan is like innama yamurukum bisu'i wal fahsha'i. So first of all, shaitan try to make a simple evil, simple bad thing. It will introduce. The person can't feel it bad, so it can make a habit of that. For example, if shaitan say make idea that you have this book, and this is a book like a novel, or any book that is like a fiction book, which is about the like male and female understanding something about lovable things, which is uh, like not allowed in Islam. So the person is fiction is already lying, and when a person is just to read that one, the motivation and persuasion comes in mind, and then the shaitan comes to the mind. Oh, what are you doing? So now you do practice, because Allah said, like. Innama yamurukum bisue wal fahsha'i. So this su, first of all, shaitan made a person to read the fiction book. When the person is reading, after that the shaitan comes to the person and say, okay, now you can try to make girlfriend boyfriend. Okay, this is fasha, this is bisu. First the person was reading, the understanding, this was the first evil, small evil, then this makes the other way, then bisu wal fasha, then shaitan makes the sexual evil, that is convert the mind of a person to do sexual evil, like to make a friendship with some girl or boy, and like then the person say, okay, shaitan invite the person to do more forward, and even that will be the biggest sexual evils possible. So then when the person is doing this and make a habit of that one, وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and then shaitan makes that is no problem, this is the habit, other people they do, I can do, no problem. And then makes in mind different things, even the person becomes so much the so much different, like can say different things about Allah also, which are not to be said. So this with respect and regard of Allah finish from the mind of the person also. And this is the shaitanic tactic to make a person away from Islam. So start from the little bit evils, and then it makes them bigger one, and then makes a person against Allah, and automatically the person is just to say some wording, something which is not to be said according to Islam, and those becomes the blames towards Allah, and will become the source for a person to go into the hell. So these things are mostly made by the shaitan. And here is also in this ayat Allah tells us, if because these are the ways of shaitan, and that shaitan is the ways of the kuffar, sorry, the kuffar, the people of kuffar, they are just to, when they are listening, they understand, they not understand, they only listen for like one side and leave that other side. They are not to keep the Islamic things in their heart and are in their mind. So this way they are unable to say the truth, they are unable to look at the truth, so they are blind and deaf, and and even and they can be dumb, because they are not to say the truth. So automatically, so what will happen to them? And these people, uh, they have not in a position to use their akal, use their mind properly, because according to Islam they have no knowledge, no more understanding, because in their mind there is no place understanding or keeping the light of Islam. So we request Allah to give us the Islamic understanding, and make us away from the traditions, custom and traditions of the kuffar, and keep us purified Muslim, and the ways, those ways and traditions which are accepted by you and the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and just make our way to follow those custom traditions which are according to Quran and Sunnah, inshallah, and make us successful in this world and the world hereafter. Ameen.